All right, Michael had to step out for a second, so I'm going to hop in the host chair here. We bring on our good friend Eric Wynalda, U.S. men's soccer legend, to talk a little Champions League that just happened and some other stuff around them. First off, Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a good week. We've had some good results. I see you got the Gladbach jersey on, which is pretty terrific. Great call there. Yeah, no, it's a good week. It's a little bit crazy because this is a crazy season. MLS starts, and now it's a full Saturday and a full Sunday, so kind of crazy, but all good.
All right, well, we just watched a very dramatic and interesting Champions League. At least one of the ties was. What are your thoughts on what we saw from this past week? And more specifically, how about that Real Madrid just blitz on Liverpool on Tuesday?
Yeah, it's really strange, man. What's going on with this Liverpool team? You almost thought for a second there that this might have been the turning point. It goes 2-0, bad mistake from Courtois, and then it's just 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 2-5, could have been 2-6. Madness. I think what we're realizing, and unfortunately, we've talked about this previously on the podcast about just Klopp in general. Every 7 years, it just seems to go wrong for him. And we're in that seventh year. 7 years in Mainz, 7 years in Dortmund, 7 years in Liverpool. It might be time to look the other way. But come on, man, that midfield. There's so many things to fix. It's almost like I feel like Liverpool and Chelsea just need to get to the end line, get to the end of the year, and recalculate, because it's just been one mess after another. But amazing. All that being said, let's face it. Real Madrid's Real Madrid, and Benzema is still. It's incredible. I saw a stat that he scored more goals against the English top six than Suarez without ever playing in the EPL. So, I mean, let's tip our hat to Ancelotti and his gang, but still, it's bad times in Chelsea and it's worse times in Liverpool.
I think one of the interesting things, and I see that you've tweeted about it a little bit, is that MLS has made this move now to Apple TV. I'm a T-Mobile user, so I'm very excited. I'm getting it for free. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be investing my money in the MLS. I watch it. I watch the Union here and there, but I'm not, following the league week to week like some diehards. What do you make of, one, just MLS's kind of trajectory here, expanding markets, but two, how do you think this Apple TV situation will play this season and going forward in terms of trying to grow it? And what's the future?
Well, here's what nobody will say. Apple is closely monitoring what's going on with the NFL and the Amazon deal, and watching the Thursday night numbers go down. This is a petri dish for the NBA. Let's just be honest. That's what they're up to. It's not really an expansion, really. What it is to figure out what this is going to look like. Incidentally enough, I don't know if you're paying attention to the U.S. soccer deal with HBO Max. They haven't even released their numbers yet because they don't want to. They don't want us to know how bad they are. That will be the case in the first couple of weeks with the Apple deal. And the reason for that originally was that you couldn't even go watch it in a bar. They've remedied that. I don't know if you saw that. They've gone backwards now, and they've done some deals with DirecTV to kind of fix that. So you can now figure out a way to watch MLS games in a bar. But to your point, most people who watch MLS, who have a team, would much rather just have the ability to watch their own team. Philadelphia doesn't give a crap how Chicago does. You don't. You're not going to watch that. So those numbers are going to be skewed. Now, they were getting somewhere between 147, 160,000 per game on the networks. Just get ready for the no release of numbers, because they're going to count numbers of people that are season ticket holders as if they were watching. That doesn't mean they were watching. So it's going to be a tricky start. It's viewed as a way for us to be expansive and to see all the games. But the people that were not watching it when it was free are expected to pay for it now, and that's not really going to be a good look in the start of this thing. But again, I commend Apple and MLS for getting it done. Bigger problem, guys, and the last point I'd make is they're way behind. It was viewed as a $250 million deal, 80,000, I think 80 million of that was to build that centralized production studio. They're way behind on that. So they're going to have to already dip into the owners' pockets to make sure that they can do these remotely. That's where it's going to get tricky, guys. That's a big expense. They're going to be probably somewhere in the 50 to 60 million over budget year one. So stay tuned. I'm sure they're aware of that problem. The numbers will be skewed, but the good news is that you do have access if you want it.
How do you think
So,
that
yeah,
affects?
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how do you think that affects them trying to bring older players over from like Europe's top 5 leagues? So, like for example, there's been rumors of Messi going to Inter Miami along with Sergio Busquets as well. Do you think that is kind of built in, maybe not built into the Apple deal, but kind of like a little hat tip, maybe saying like, hey, let's overpay to get some of these stars in to maybe help our cause here?
I'm glad you brought it up because that's exactly what's going on. They're building their business plan around that.
Okay.
So they're hoping that the Colombians will want to see a Colombian player. They're hoping that the Argentines will want to get their superstars. That is exactly what they're up to. It's yet to be seen what kind of effect a superstar like Messi will have on this. We all saw the impact that David Beckham had with LA. It became a kumbaya thing for all of the owners. But you got to realize in this single entity business of Major League Soccer, when Beckham came over, it's not like the LA Galaxy paid all that. You have a contract with the league, and then they send you to the team. So the league pays for your salary. What that means is when there's a big time player that comes in like Beckham, he's going to be paid for in this collection. It's a capital call. Let's face it. That's exactly what's going on. It's the same when a player goes out. You're under the assumption that if somebody goes, and we just saw a player, for example, we were just going through the list of Montreal, who sent a couple players on their way, one to Watford, I believe, for 8.5, and Mihailovic was around 6. So that's 14 million in, right? It didn't all go to Montreal. So it all goes back to the single entity before they figure that out. But you're exactly right. The whole point is to get this global. And it's a test market for the NBA. And let's face it, let's look at some of the players who are on the NBA. They're not all American. There's a lot of guys that they can start figuring out if this model will work in different sports.
More than ever in the NBA, for sure. MLS also announced they're expanding the playoffs. They're doing this best of 3, 9 teams per conference. I know it's an American thing. Like, we need the playoffs and we want the playoffs. Is that something you've played you've seen both sides of that whole thing? Like, where do you come down on kind of what the ideal playoff format is for MLS, given that the season already is really long and now you're having, I think it's 62% of the league is going to make the playoffs?
It's amazing, right? Well, they got an odd number right now. So that's why that 9 number comes in. They have to have a play-in game. But I'm completely against it. I'm completely against the idea that we have to have this many teams getting in. It should be special. But again, coupled with the Apple deal, it's just about inventory. The one deal came before the other. They need to make sure that they have enough inventory to put on their platform. And, of course, there's that reward system. If you win, if you come in a higher place in the league, you're going to get that home game and you get that payout. But the reality is, it's just way too many games, way too much. It is a concern for the players' health. But again, this is about the money, nothing else.
Okay, I have a very interesting question that came to my brain this morning that I think is kind of interesting for our listeners to think about and ponder as well. Since you are a former manager, obviously, if you could pick any team in the world to manage right now, but I'm going to remove some easy ones. So no Big Six plus Newcastle in the EPL, no Bayern, no Dortmund, no Leipzig, no Barcelona, no Atletico, no Real Madrid, no Inter, AC Milan, Napoli, Juventus, and no PSG. So I'm essentially taking away all of the big rich clubs. It makes it easy for you, right? So
not easy. I mean, who wants that headache, right? That's
right.
Financial fair play, and that's out of my pay grade. But
not if you're City.
Which team you're saying? Which team would
which team would you want to manage? Given obviously the ownership structure, current players, scouting networks, everything involved with it. Because I think it is kind of a interesting, like, which mid-table club would you want to manage that you think you could bring essentially?
I would go so much lower, guys. So much lower. I would go to a place called Alemannia Aachen. Alemannia Aachen used to be a first division team many years ago. They hit some financial troubles, and they ended up in the second. They went through more problems. They built a beautiful stadium called Tivoli, 32,000 seater, world class. I mean, it would be suitable for the Bundesliga tomorrow. There's nothing that you have to invest into that. They're in the fourth division, but the reason why I would pick Aachen is because there's unbelievable business opportunity there, where you could bring American players, you could bring players from Major League Soccer to play in the fourth division as a test, but also a place to showcase them and sell them. We're seeing players like Mihalovic go for 6 million to Alkmaar. The reality was there's players just like that would help this team go from 4 to 3 to 2 in a hurry. So that I would love that challenge. I love the promotion opportunity. The other good news is that on the development side, if you will, in their region, if you look up on a map where Aachen is, it's about, I think, 12 kilometers from Holland and 15 kilometers from Belgium. And it's right on those borders. And if you drive an hour south, you end up in France or Luxembourg. So it's in that sense, it's called the Ruhrgebiet, which is right. This is about an hour away from that shirt you're wearing right now. And you're going to play against Gladbach's second team, Schalke's second team, Dusseldorf's second team, Cologne's second team. And the realities of those games in itself is they're high quality games. So it's not like it feels like the fourth division. You got to go to places like Regensburg and Wuppertal, which are small little stadiums, which wouldn't even qualify for the first division. But I like the fight of that. It's a small budget. It would probably, somewhere probably around 750 to 800,000 for the entire team. And then you have to figure out the rest. But the reward of making it to the third division would be wonderful. And then once you build a team that's going to get to the second division, that's where it gets really fun. So that's where I would go. Aachen is it's an unbelievable history. And it's not the easy way for sure. It certainly is a fight where you're going to have to get the business right. So that's where I would go.
Interesting.
I think I'm going to be the star of season 3 of the Wrexham documentary if I have the option.
The same story, it's just in German.
I'm going to the South Coast, Brighton, 100%.
Where would you go? You go to Brighton? No, Brighton's
I'd go to Brighton.
That's so lame.
Out of 1,000. Here's why. I'll tell you why.
Brighton, lovely city, but
it's like saying Monaco. Let's go to Monaco, where like 15 people and U2 show up. I mean,
right.
Come on.
I mean, I'd love to live in Monaco, but Brighton. I mean, I've been there before, obviously. But Tony Bloom is a former gambler. He invests heavily in analytics. His scouting department is honestly the best in the world right now. So even though I can't, have a big budget like that, I mean, they just got Matoma for $3 million, and now they're going to sell him for what, 85, 90 in like 2 years. Okay. So,
well, the Vegas guys just bought Bournemouth, so I mean, that might be another idea.
Yeah, and also the Brentford is also owned by a former gambler as well. Who
their striker is a former gambler, evidently.
Their striker is
current gambler.
Unfortunate that you said that, but
gambler.
Let's face it, that was a crappy situation. I'll tell you that you got me thinking now with Brentford. They must be betting on a tie. They got more ties than anybody. Only 4 losses.
Yep.
No, they're in the top half. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So it's been crazy.
You brought us Gladbach at 6-1 last week. Do you have another best bet or an underdog across Europe?
Notice how I put my glasses on when I decided to get smart. But I do, and I was looking at it this week. And now here's the thing. There's a lot of sure bets. I mean, to be honest, I think that when you look at some of the fixtures, it's not too hard to figure out what's going to happen. But they're not like home runner. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think Leicester's going to put up much of a fight with Arsenal. I just don't. And we all saw that the Newcastle game was with Brighton was postponed because of the cup. But the one that's interesting me the most, honest to God, guys, and I'm crazy to say this, is Bournemouth and Man City.
Great spot for Bournemouth.
It's one of those, Crystal Palace has got Liverpool, but man, I'm telling you, it's a weird one. Now,
great spot.
Well, you got nothing to lose, and I love it when teams have nothing to lose. And then let me check the Bundesliga, because I wanted to wait until I got through today. I mean, I was very disappointed with Leipzig, the way they started the game today. But boy, man, did they look terrific.
Great second half.
And it was a great second half. And you got to think that maybe that was part of the plan. But Leipzig's got Frankfurt, and in under those circumstances, I mean, you got some really good games outside of Bayern and Union Berlin, which is a battle for the top spot, which sounds so crazy to say. Berlin doesn't stand a chance. That's not even something to even. Bayern's just mad right now, and it's just the timing of this for Berlin is terrible. I think they lose that 4-0. But and the Freiburg game, it's a long trip for the Leverkusen boys. But Leipzig and Frankfurt, guys, Leipzig and Frankfurt, as good as Leipzig looked, right? That game took a lot out of them. It took a lot out of them. I mean, I was really surprised at how many subs were not made on the Man City side. It was very odd in a time where he starts needing to manage bodies. But I think Frankfurt takes them, guys.
All right.
Frankfurt,
Bournemouth and Frankfurt. I think BJ's on Leipzig, but
I am on
we're
Leipzig.
an anti-Frankfurt podcast.
We're very anti-Frankfurt.
You should be. There's so many reasons to be. This is if you watch the Kolo Muani red card. It's not a red card.
Yeah, it was harsh.
It's just it's harsh. Really harsh. It's really
yellow.
harsh. It was a really
takes them out of the Champions League.
Yeah, and that's a rough swing. So what that means is, let's back to focus. And I think Frankfurt is the kind of team that can really sneak up and bite you in those kind of pockets. So as much as we saw Leipzig, don't get fooled by it. It might be smoke and mirrors. That was good. Forsberg came out pretty quick. And Kuku came into the game and he looked all right. The goal probably may have been called back if you could deem that a foul. But I think Leipzig that sucked a lot of wind out of them today. And Frankfurt's pissed off. So I'm taking Frankfurt on a low-scoring victory.
Okay.
It's fine with me. I have the under, so we'll take that.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Eric, thank you very much for joining us once again, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.